we have here is we are going to factor the GCF. So GCF is always first anytime that you are having a factor problem. So just a reminder, like I'm not quizzing or testing on this, but if you have a final, this stuff is, if you're not exempting, this is on the final. So, which is coming up soon. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to first look at the 5 and the 20. And we're going to take out the highest number that they have in common. 5 goes into itself once. 5 also goes into 24 times. So if you find a number that goes into both of them, we're going to take that out. And guys, factoring is the opposite of distribution. So there used to be a 5 on the outside of the parentheses, and it was distributed to something inside the parentheses. So remember, distribution is multiplying, factoring is dividing. Factoring is dividing. So 5 divided by 5 is a 1, and that's x to the third. A positive 20 divided by a positive 5 is a positive 4, so I'm writing a plus 4, and then I'm recopying the x. So that's not truly done yet because both of these terms in parentheses have an x, which means there's an x on the outside of the parentheses before we distributed. So the deal with the x's, you take the lowest exponent. So I have x to the third here, and I have x to the first power there. So x to the first power is the lowest one, so that's the one we're going to factor out. All right, so I'm going to recopy this 5. I'm going to copy that single x. And again, it's all about what you're taking out and what remains. So remember, this was a single one with an x to the third power, but I took an x out. So I don't have 3 x's anymore. I only have 2. And then that single x taken out all together right here. So all I need to write is plus 4. So that's how we factor the GCF. The GCF is what was factored out. The GCF is what was distributed to make the original problem. So what is the GCF? 5x. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. I've got 10y to the third minus 5y squared plus 20y. Guys, all of these are multiples of 5. I know I'm going to be able to take a 5 out. They also all have the letter y, so I'm going to take the letter y out. So since they're all multiples of 5, and since they all have a y, I'm going to start there. So now I'm going to draw some parentheses, and y'all, I'm going to divide. So I take the original number, 2, this is going to be the answer, 10 divided by 5 is a positive 2. And that 10 used to have 3 y's, but remember, we're taking a y out. So the y is decreased by a single y. So we're going to write y squared. And then remember, that's not a 5, that's a negative 5. So a negative 5 divided by that 5 is going to leave a negative 1. And remember, we don't really write the 1. It kind of looks silly when we write a 1. All right, so we had 2 y's here, but remember, we're taking a y out. So 2 y's minus that y is a single y. So you divide the numbers, you subtract the letters. So 20 is a number, so we're going to divide. 20 divided by 5 is a positive 4, so let's write plus 4. And then there was a y, but we took that y out. We took it away. So a y minus a y is nothing. So I kind of have an empty space there, but that's okay. I could scoot my parentheses over. So what's the GCF? It's the number on the outside of the parentheses, 5y. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and practice some factoring. So if you are going into like any entrance exam that requires any sort of trade or if you plan on going to college, this stuff is definitely on entrance exams, but it doesn't just appear on college entrance exams. So let's talk about how we're going to factor this, because this is a problem-solving activity. So what we're going to do is we are going to draw an X. So out here on my blank space, I'm going to draw an X. And guys, there's a ton of ways to factor. This has just been the fastest for me. Remember, it's my job for a living. I factor for a living. This is the fastest way that I have figured out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a template here. And this is going to be the same thing I use every time. So what goes at the bottom is going to be the C value. And remember, this is our little template right here. X squared plus BX plus C. The C is going to go at the bottom. Just the number. The middle number, the -10, that's our B value. That's going to go at the top. It's always like this. And then these two side numbers are the answers. It's always like this, y'all. For me, this is the fastest way to do it. So hopefully you guys will be able to run with it. All right, so if I'm working with example number 1, the C value is a -24, so I'm gonna write -24 down here. And then my B value is a -10. So I'm kind of focused on the -24. I need to come up with factors of -24. So there's 6 and 4, there's 3 and 8, there's 2 and 12, there's a bunch. But see this -10 up here? I need them to combine to make a -10. And whenever that number is negative, that means one of these, whenever this number is negative, one of these has to be negative. What do you say? Yeah, you're right. I almost thought it was going to be 6 and 4, but remember, only one of the numbers can be negative. So we are absolutely going to use these two numbers. So those two numbers go in the sideways of my X. But remember, one of them has to be negative. Which one has to be negative to combine to make a -10? -12. A -12 and a +2 make a -10. A -12 times a +2 makes a -24. These sideways numbers right here with the signs, they get dropped right here. So when we factor this, the linear factors are X + 2 and X - 12. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. So for the next one, I have a C value of a 4. I have a B value of a 4 also. So I'm going to draw my little blanks for my factors here. And the only numbers that make a 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. And since that's a positive and that's a positive, they're going to stay positives. So of course, these are the ones we want because those add to a 4. So remember, it adds up to the top number. It multiplies down to the bottom number. So remember when I said these appear on entrance exams or employment exams, screenings? They probably won't show it like that. See how they're exactly the same? They're going to use a little exponent out to the side. So you might see it like that too. All right, let's take a look at the next page. So for this next page here, I kind of noticed that I have 2x squared minus 14x plus 24, and all of those numbers are even. If all of those numbers are even, you have to factor out a 2. Every time you see all even numbers, there's a 2 that can be factored out. So if I factor out a 2, remember it's division. 2 divided by 2 is a single x squared. A -14 divided by a +2 is a -7. And then a +24 divided by a +2 is a +12. So now that that 2 has gone away, remember, it is a factor. I'm not going to worry about that until later. That 2 is a factor. Guys, that 2, I'm going to scan down here and copy it right there because it's going to be part of the answer. All GCFs are part of the answer. Okay, so now I'm going to fix the trinomial. So I need numbers that combine up to make a -7, but at the same exact time multiply down to make a 12. So for 12, we have 2 and 6, 3 and 4, what else? 1 and 12. Now, since this number is positive right here, that means both of these have to have the same sign. Because 2 negatives multiplied together makes a positive. So if you notice right here, that's going to be our answer because a -3 times a -4 is a 12, and a -3 combined with a -4 combines up to a -7. So our answers are going to be x minus 3, x minus 4. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at example 4. So example 4 does not have all even numbers, and the leading one just has a 1 in front of it, so I'm not going to have a GCF. So I'm just going to go straight to my setup. I need numbers that combine up to a -3, but multiply down to a -10. So here's my combos right here for a -10. It could either be a -2 and a +5, or a +2 and a -5. This is going to be the correct one because a +2 combined with a -5 combines up to a -3. So we're going to write +2 and then -5. Then y'all, we're just going to recopy this +2 and -5 in the parentheses template. Just drop the X in front. That's it. Okay, so let's look at the next block down here. So for these last 4 problems, I am going to draw an X to organize my thought process, but I am not listing all of the factors. You guys should know your multiplication facts at this time. All right, so remember, I need things to multiply down to a +4, but combine up to a 5. And that's going to be a +1 and a +4. Remember, those sideways numbers get dropped into the parentheses. That's it. That's going to be the answer for that. Remember, the -7 goes on top, the +12 goes on the bottom. And we already did this problem. This is example number 3 after we factored out the GCF. So remember, a -3 times a -4 makes a +12, but a -3 combined with 4 more negatives is a total of 7 negatives, which combines to the top number. So if you notice, I have a -6 for my C value. Let me go ahead and copy that down right here. And I also have a positive X, which is just a +1. So I'm just going to put a +1 up there. So factors that make a -6, it's either going to be a 1 and a 6 or a 2 and a 3. We're certainly going to use a 2 and a 3 because we can make one of these negative where it combines to just a +1. Yes, the 2 is going to end up being negative. A -2 combined with 3 positives leaves a single positive number. So that's what's getting dropped into our parentheses. X minus 2, X plus 3. All right, for this next one right here, I'm about to start factoring this, but for us in here, y'all, if you have a number in front, you need to factor out the GCF. So if you notice, I don't have a plain X like I did in all of these. There's a 2 there. So as I look at the rest of the trinomial, they're all even. So if they're all even, we have to factor out a 2. Remember, when we factor out a 2, it is division. So 2 divided by 2 is a single x squared. A -6 divided by a +2 is a -3. I'm going to copy that x that was already with it. And a -2 divided by a -20 divided by a +2 is a -10. That should look familiar too, because that's that problem. All right, so I need numbers that combine up to a -3, but multiply down that make a -10. So that's going to be a -5 and a +2, and that's it. You're just going to drop these in the parentheses.